and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video is beginning acrylic, and I am just trying to explain a lot of the things that you are going to be finding in the painting aisle. Now, pardon the change of a location, I asked if I could do this at my work, and they said yes, so thank you to where I work. They have a little bit bigger space for me for all this stuff, much easier. So to get started, we are going to talk about canvases. Unfortunately, I am going to have to show brands in here, but you know, that's how it goes. All right, so there are different kinds of canvases available. You're going to see different sizes and all that stuff. And some places they'll even have like level 1, level 2, and level 3. Now, honestly, I've never seen a difference between levels other than shape and sizes that they come in. Level 1 tends to be all of your more traditional sizes that you see, the more standard sizes for framing and different things like that. It's just something you see more common. In this case of this level 2, that's where I start seeing the less common sizes. So really oddball sizes. If you don't have your own stretches, which is the wood pieces in the back here, if you don't have your own bits like this and your own canvas, then this is where you can get your more custom looked sizes pretty much. Now, as far as level 3 goes, it also comes in a variety of odd and strange sizes, but the biggest thing about level 3 is the depth of the canvas. I traditionally kind of view this level 3 as being more of a in the museum type thing. You got those wide edges. You're not going to be framing it. Either you can paint the edges with the rest of your picture, which you pretty much should do, or you are going to paint these edges to be uniform, one color. I see a lot of people just paint these sides black, so that way if you're viewing it from the side, it doesn't detract from your picture on the front. And from there, you pretty much have one last canvas type other than making your own. Now, I take that back. There is another one. I see you got your board canvas here, just plain old board. A lot of people traditionally like to use this for practicing and getting started with painting classes. The differences between the two, there's not a whole lot of difference, except the texture seems to be a whole lot more in the canvas that is put on the boards. You're just going to notice a little bit of a severity sometimes with that. And obviously the board has no give because it is all board in the back. Whereas these guys, there's hollowness, you know, outside of your stretcher. And it could be a surprise to some people. And some people, after using the boards, may not like how there's a give in regular canvases in the back. So just be aware that that is a thing. A lot of people, once they go with the boards starting out and then they go to a real canvas, they don't like how this gives and bounces on them. And the more you work with your canvas, the more it starts getting stretched a little bit and gives more and more. And then that's over time. Sometimes it will tighten back up. So no real worries. If you pre-buy these guys, you can still unstaple them and restretch them if you want, making them a little bit tighter after you're done with your picture. Not always recommended. You'd have to be pretty persnickety to really be worrying about that. Now, there is one more type of canvas that you can get. I've seen it other places, and that is ungessoed canvas. And it looks just like the canvas that you're seeing on the inside. Sometimes it shows up a little darker depending on the company. This is ungessoed canvas, and gesso is what you put over the top of the canvas to give it this nice white color. So you can buy canvas just plain, like so. Stretch your own canvas pieces, get your own stretchers, and pull it all around, pull it over. And then most of the time, you are definitely going to have to gesso your own canvas as well. So there's 3 parts to a canvas. probably one more thing to make mention about when making your own canvas like this. You don't always have to gesso. There are several different techniques that involve just putting the paint directly on the canvas and it bleeding out and leaching out throughout the fabric. And you get some really cool different things going on. It gives it a really nice rustic look. So that's canvases that you will see when you get started. Now the next thing to think about is going to be your palette. All these guys and varieties and shapes and all, yeah. I mean, there's more palettes out there than there are colors, I just about think. I personally have this wood one. It is the biggest one in where I work anyway. So it's my favorite. Plus, it comes with a great set of palette knives. I'll explain that later. And yeah, when you go to work on this and everything, if you ever want to clean it off and all that, it is going to soak up the paint. You're never going to get it back to the way it was. My resolution for that is whenever I go shopping and I get bags left over, especially if they're white bags, I always hold on to those. I will cover this in the white bag that I got from the store, tie it off at the top. So that way, if I decide that, okay, well, my husband, he just decides, okay, we're going to go eat something. And like you would say that right when I put out fresh paint. Why did you do that? It's no big deal. Just go get some cellophane and just wrap that up like it's a Thanksgiving turkey. You are going to smoosh your paint a little bit, but you know, keeps it from drying out and it works great. And then when you're done with your painting, all you have to do is just untie the knot from the bag, slide it off, throw it away. Board's nice and clean. So just because it's wood, don't let that frighten you as far as cleanup. Now there are also these canvases that come in plastic, and all it takes is just a little razor blade to scrape off maybe what's dried if you want to clean it up just a little bit. And then there are also little bowls out there, plates with various wells, and then you got this guy with all the wells here. Or you can do what I've seen a lot of people do and just styrofoam plates. My thing is with the styrofoam plates is you're wasting money a lot with those. You're throwing them away in between each sitting. Don't particularly care for them, but you know, when you're getting started, if you don't want to invest in one of these, they're not expensive really. But you know, that is an option. The paint's not going to eat your styrofoam plate, so it's not like it's that big a deal. Now my only thing, I do like this guy. He's a great alternative. I probably would have bought him, except the wood one, where, like I said, where I work, it's bigger, so that's my favorite. And again, the palette knives coming with it is a big plus. So, but he is also perfectly great. Now we're down to these guys. I don't care as much for these. I mean, yeah, you can put your paint inside of these cups and then you can cover it with cellophane again and, or cling wrap, whatever you want to call it. Just cover it up and yeah, it's great and it's perfect, but you don't have any place to mix except for directly mixing paint on your canvas. And that there's times and places for that, and there's also times and places where you don't want to mix it on your canvas. These wells, there again, not really a whole lot of room for mixing. If you have another side plate, maybe, but it's just a big hassle, I think. But you know, if you think that this is for you, good on you. I just don't prefer it. I like having more room as needed. Now with this guy, I don't care for this one either, because all of these wells, this is probably more of a watercolor than anything, but there are acrylic and oil versions of this. But you have all these wells and you think, okay, yeah, there's plenty of room to mix things. Well, what if you need to mix whatever colors in here with whatever colors over here? A lot of people will try to pick it up with their brush and over the wall. Well, that wall is going to eat so much of your paint. So much of your paint is going to get wasted just because of that area. And I don't like to waste paint. It's expensive enough on its own without needing help of this guy eating it. Now there is another version. You can get super fancy, super expensive, and get something like this. Again, you got your wells for your different colors, and there's a big blank area for mixing. And it comes with all these lovely pieces of paper, fit just inside of it perfectly. You're done, you pick them out, you throw them away. My only problem with that is that this costs way more than a free plastic bag from the grocery store, and this one little wood one, get the exact same thing, nowhere near the cost. And plus, these, constantly buying these guys, I think just with the two of them together, it's almost $40. That's, no. And cellophane, as opposed to this lid, no, not my thing. Maybe yours, and it's available out there, but not my deal. All right, now palette knives come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors. A lot of people use them for mixing, and what most beginners don't realize, you can also use them a lot for painting. Now, you're really not going to understand how you use these guys for painting until you take a painting class, or I do a painting class for you, showing you how you use these in a painting. I see them used a lot for doing like the wispy bits off of like the corners of your hair, your bangs, you know, all those little tiny short hairs that just don't want to go in with the rest of your hair into your ponytail or whatever you're doing, or even the little hairs on the back of your neck. A lot of people use these guys for those. In addition to everything else, they do a variety of very, very awesome things, and getting yourself a set of plastic ones, they will work great and they will work a long time for you. Keep them clean, make sure you wipe them off in between uses, or keep them damp if you're using something that's going to dry fast, like acrylics. Let's see, what else about these guys? There are metal versions of this available out there as well. Now, the only thing is, people think, oh, well, the metal ones, those are going to last longer, and you may know somebody who breaks these plastic ones, and I've heard that a lot. Thing is, if you're breaking these plastic ones, you're going to break the metal ones. You are using these way too hard. I don't know what you're doing. You might be grouting your tile with these. I don't know how people are breaking these, because you are using them way too hard if you do. You don't need to put that much force behind it now, come on. But these are available out there in both metal and plastic, whichever you prefer. The plastic is obviously cheaper than the metal. And the metal's a little bit easier to clean. You can use the razor blade to clean it off. You can use the razor blade on the plastic ones too. The only thing is, you just got to make sure that you don't gouge it. All right, now we can talk a little bit about brushes here. Now we have a variety of brushes. We'll start off with these three. Now you're probably end up seeing a lot of, you'll see watercolor brushes, you'll see acrylic brushes, and then you'll see oil brushes. I'll tell you right now, this guy's the oil brush. And it's not because he's huge, and it's not because he's big, because you'll find a lot of smaller brushes for oil as well. What makes this an oil brush is how very, very coarse the hair is in this brush. This is pretty much horse hair, you know. So it's very, very coarse. It holds paint better, especially when you get into oils. If you think about how ladies, when you're doing your hair, different hair products, a lot of them, especially the oils that make your hair a little softer that you put on the ends of your hair, that's basically the same concept with this. This thing's going to eat up oils. Well, not eat it, but it's going to absorb or hold your oils and hold a lot more, so that way while you're painting, you can get a lot more out of it per swipe. Not nearly as handy for acrylics, and that is because if you've ever seen the hair commercials where they're showing you split ends and such, well, yeah, it's real hair. It's got split ends in it, especially horsehair. It's going to have split ends in it, so your paint is going to catch in all of those split end areas, or those little flaked off areas on each individual bristle. And because it's acrylic, it dries faster, it's going to get stuck in there, and you're never really going to get it too terribly clean without major cleaning chemicals. So that's what makes this guy really more of an oil only brush. Plus, a lot of people who do acrylics and do watercolors, this definitely is not going to hold very much watercolor, because watercolor, basically think of it as very, very fine sand. It's suspended in water pretty much. You stir up the water, you're stirring up the sand, and then you go and paint with it. At least that's how I always viewed it. So this guy's not going to work too terribly well with that. I mean, you see how quickly water runs out of your hair versus oil. So there's that guy. Now we have our last two brushes. This is a real hair. I believe this is camel hair. And it comes in sable and a different variety of very fine, delicate hairs out there when it comes to brushes. This is typically viewed more as the acrylic brush. But I also like the synthetics as well. Honestly, the synthetic versus which the synthetic's typically more of your watercolor brush, I find these completely interchangeable. I love synthetics, even though, you know, it starts off white. Yeah, that's never going to stay white. We all know that. That's impossible. But it stays cleaner longer, it seems like, because this is still real hair. Even though it's very fine hair, it still has those little, you know, split ends going on with it. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it'll get clean. There's lots of cleaners out there, a lot of great stuff. But it's, I personally like the synthetics more myself, especially the soft grip synthetics. But I won't, if I can't find a paintbrush in the style I want, or at least the synthetic versus natural, I don't fret about it. It is not a big deal whatsoever. But I do find that watercolor brushes and acrylic brushes, interchangeable. No big difference, no big deal. Now, another type of brush I want to show you. I call these gimmick brushes. So, come on now. Come out and say hi to everybody. Oh, you poop head. There we go. Now you can see how these are fan brushes. You can see how this fan brush is different than all these fan brushes. Very obvious, actually. Now, I see a lot of beginners make the mistake of, oh, well, I need a brush of every single kind, and that includes these gimmick brushes is what I call them. Very gimmicky. This brush will do this brush, whatever this brush does, and a few other things as well. Watch some of my videos as I make them, and you will find out how. But this brush, you'll find brushes like these, they'll work for one thing, two things maybe. You think, oh, this, not necessarily, I can't think of what I'd do with this, but oh, this brush, it'll be perfect for doing wood grain and painting something to make it look like, you know, the individual striations in wood. Well, maybe it will be great for that. Try to find something else to do with it. You'll find that this is now permanently your wood grain brush. And unless you're doing wood grain themed things, you have no idea what else to do with him. But this guy will do the same thing. And he'll do 100 other things. Gimmick brushes, they're there, they're available. I don't really care for them. They just end up taking up so much more space in your collection, in your house, and save your money and get some nice brushes. Don't waste it on these. So that is pretty much brushes. Now, as far as jars go, so you have all kinds of jars available as far as like to hold water for while you're painting, or to hold your turpentine and different things like that. I definitely recommend something lidded if you are going to put major chemicals in it. I like this guy a lot, especially that wire bottom helps you to agitate the brush to get it really clean while you're messing with it. But that wire wet mesh, you can probably put that, make your own at any hardware store and do the same thing for maybe a little cheaper. I'm not really sure on that. I've never tried it. But the only problem I have with this, and we used to have this in one of our classrooms until somebody dropped it and it shattered. Now you're going to be moving, you know, these things around. You're going to be filling them up. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff with them. They don't just sit on the table and never move ever again. So I find that to be a great big drawback. So I actually have a little Tupperware thing. I got two. But one of them's an itty bitty little Tupperware thing. I cannot figure out what on earth ever do with it beyond, you know, like leftover sauce, and you have like 2 tablespoons left over. It's like, what? Why? I'll make more. It's no big deal. I don't need to save that. So I use that little Tupperware that's only that tall and about that round for my watercolors. And it works out really, really great. The only thing is, especially if you were using plates, don't use plates you eat off of to put your paint on, and don't use Tupperware for holding harsh chemicals, for one, and for two, your water that you're using to clean your brushes off while you're painting. The reasoning for that is, if you're going to use something that is like that, do not ever put it in the dishwasher. Do not let it be anywhere near the kitchen where it could get mistaken and put in with the dishes and go through the dishwasher. It's okay if it goes through the dishwasher, but a lot of people, if they put it in the dishwasher, they don't realize that, oh, okay, it's just a plate, I'm going to put it up. Or a little Tupperware, I'm going to put it up. You never want to get what you actually eat off of mixed up with what you use to paint, because no matter how clean you get it, you know, just like water, and especially if you have hard water, there is going to be buildup over time. And it is something to definitely take note of with paints. I believe it's white that still has lead in it. Blue has cobalt in it. These are majorly hazardous chemicals and poisons that you could potentially end up ingesting because you decided to use Tupperware or a plate that you would normally eat off of and not keep it separated from everything else. If you do decide to go that route, my husband knows that that itty bitty thing, that is my painting cup. It came, 2 of them came in the kit. I abducted them both because we have no use for them. They have little lids. They're great for my purposes. So if he sees it, and I made sure, I mean, it's just me and him, but if there was anybody else living in my house, I would make sure that they know, okay, these are not to be eaten from, these are not to be washed with everything else, these have to be washed separately, don't mess with them, I will. So that way they don't accidentally get mixed up for whatever reason. Because those chemicals, they're pretty dangerous. Don't use a cup from your cup, your regular drinking cups. Again, those paints, they do build up. Even though it looks like you got it all out, it still builds up. And little bits of lead, little bits of cobalt, yeah, over time, it's not a good thing. So keep that in mind. But you can also get something that's specifically for, well, like what else would you use it for? Obviously, it's painting. So these types of things are available. They come in metals, and they come with like latch lids and all these really fancy pants varieties out there. I personally don't care for the glass for reasons I've already stated. Metal ones, I'm sure they're perfectly great. I can foresee some potentially hazardous things. If for some reason they got heated up and like there's turpentine inside of it, then you got the potential for a deadly gas to, you know, just puff out as soon as you open it and you inhale it and fall down and hurt yourself. Don't do that. But be careful whenever you're messing with any of those kinds of things. We love painting, and painting's not really as dangerous as I may be making it out to be, but be aware. I've seen people do this stuff, and it's like, no, you're going to kill yourself, and then I won't have anybody to teach, and then I will be sad. So don't do it. All right, now one of the last things, as far as regular painting materials go, other than the paint itself, sponges. Sponges come in a variety of different things, and you got like regular bathing like sponges, and then you got the sponges that look like you use for your feet. Yeah, sponges. Not really a whole lot to say about them. Really, I think these are for walls, not for, I suppose if you want to get that texture and you want to get it fast, but there's other ways to do it. But it's there, it's available, and if you do a lot of things that requires that texture, go for it. Get it. Great. I personally don't. But yeah, it's available. It's good. Get some if you want it. So, all right, now we're going to move on to paint. Now, if you've watched my beginner watercolors paint, you would have heard me say that don't get the cheapest paint. But as far as watercolor goes, you know, the middle road and okay, this isn't the cheapest, but it's like 3 steps up from the cheapest paint. Yeah, those work fine. Those work great. When it comes to acrylics, don't go cheap because you end up paying for it. You'll see these great big huge bottles available at a variety of different stores. I'm not trying to say anything bad about this paint line. You know, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I don't want to show what brand this is because, I mean, it's a cheaper option paint. That's what it is. But if you've ever tried to paint a wall, and let's say it used to be red, and now you're trying to paint it white, and you get cheap paint from the hardware store, how many coats of paint do you end up using trying to cover up that red wall? Exact same situation here. The big cheap paints, just because, oh, look at all that paint I get. Look how much money I'm going to save. You end up spending about the exact same amount of money because it takes 2, 3 coats. Not all the colors, I'm sure, but especially when you are dealing with whites, yellows, and reds especially. 1 coat's not going to do it. 2 coats might not even do it. And depending on what that underneath coat is, it might take 5 coats to cover up what you plan to cover up. So just because it's cheap, it is a cheaper option. Never ever skimp on your paints. My husband says there's 2 things that you just don't try to find a bargain for. One of those is food. He loves to eat. He's skinny tall thing, so he gets to eat whatever he wants. I hate him for it, but oh well. And the other thing is paint, and he learned about that when we tried to paint our house or our bedroom, and we tried to go with this really nice orange, warm, fall-y color, and it was a gray wall, a dark gray wall. It took a lot of coats. We started off with a good paint, and he decided, oh, I'm going to go get more paint, but I'm going to get something cheaper. I know there's something cheaper out there. Well, he did find it. And I told him, okay, well, you paint that wall, and then when you find out what I already know, come back to me and we'll go get the right stuff. And it took him forever to cover the one wall. It took him forever to get the paint on thick enough to cover up that darker gray. And then the paint started running, so he was running around the whole time trying to make sure that all the run marks didn't stay. And then he finally gave up and said, okay, we're going to go get the right stuff. So remember, there's 2 things, at least in his opinion, that you do not go cheap on. One of those is food, the other one, paint. So there are all kinds of paints out there. Again, the middle of the road prices, there's super expensive stuff out there as well. I've seen tubes about half this size, maybe just a tiny bit longer, that $10, $15 easy, depending on what color it is. And then you got tubes like this, I consider more middle of the range, $3 to $4, depending on what the color is. This is a great product on its own, but I mean, there are all kinds of other products out there. There's Winsor & Newton, other than Grumbacher, there's tons. So, and Winsor & Newton and Grumbacher make a great middle range paint. That's what I use. I don't use the $10 to $15 paints. I can't imagine what the difference would be between a $10 and $15 paint. I'm really curious to find out, but at the same time, I'm on a budget. And if the rest of you are on a budget as well, go with this. Saves you time for sure. All right, now we are going to move on to cleaning your brushes. Let's see here. You have conditioner. You definitely don't need a bottle this big of conditioner. I've had a lot of my brushes for a very long time, ever since I've been in middle school. And quite a few of them are natural hair brushes. I've never really used conditioner, but I make sure that I get my brushes very clean and I take very good care of them. maybe you might want to invest in a smaller bottle of conditioner for your real hair brushes. It's out there, it's an option. I don't see too terribly much use for it, but the good thing to remember about brushes, if you treat them right and you clean them and you give them the proper respect that they are due, your brushes could almost last your entire lifetime. So yeah, and then you get a gimmick brush, and guess what? You get to last your entire lifetime too, taking up space. So conditioner is available. I guess maybe if you're more in tune with your brush's needs than I am, but that is out there. And cleaners, there are a large variety of cleaners. I personally use this stuff. It works great. I don't leave my brushes to potentially dry. Whenever I am done using a brush, I put it in the water cup for my acrylics. And my oils as well, I pretty much keep them in a place where I mean, it's going to take a long time for oils to dry, but I do make sure I clean them in between uses. But as far as acrylics go, I make sure to keep them in the water. I clean them off in between uses, and that could be like I'm using one brush for 5 minutes and then I clean it off, and then it's going to be 2 minutes before I use it again, but I still clean it. And you're still going to get some residue, I mean, just using regular water. I use this stuff, it's great, especially the Kiss Off. If you get it on your clothes, that's really what it's more for. I've had these guys for about 15 years. I bought this package when I was in middle school. I'm still got it, the whole thing. And my brushes, look, I mean, they might be, some of them might be a little blue, some of them might be a little green, especially my white ones, but they're clean. And there's going to be staining involved in a lot of, when you're messing with your brushes. There's not too much you can do about staining, but I like this product, it works great. Now we have your harsher stuff. Oh, no, I grabbed the wrong one. Yay. Well, it looks just like this. It comes in a tin, and a variety of tins as well. It's called turpentine. I'm sure we've all heard of that, or mineral spirits. Now, though, that is a very, very harsh chemical. Used with care and used with caution. A lot of people are actually allergic to the vapors that come off of that as well. I've heard of a few anyway. I do not use turpentine, and we're going to pretend this is turpentine at the moment. I don't use turpentine unless my acrylics dry to my brush. It'll soften it up, eat it a little bit, and then clean it off and get it back to where usable again. You definitely end up using it a lot more with oils, but definitely clean your oil with your oil brushes especially. Use Dawn detergent soap first. See how clean you can get it then. And then if it's just getting to the point where, okay, it really needs a good deep cleaning, then you can get, you know, a hold of that turpentine. You should never use the word turpentine with watercolor. You should never, I don't know what you're doing. If you need turpentine for your watercolor brushes, you are very, very mean to your brushes. If that ends up being the case. I don't know what you've done. But turpentine is out there. Use it as a last resort type thing. Turpentine is very flammable as well. That is definitely worth noting. So definitely keep a small, if you're going to have it, keep a small container of turpentine around. You do not need a huge, great big, like giant can of it unless you are stripping the paint off of furniture, I think. That's the only possible situation. I cannot imagine how. I mean, I guess there's a few situations. People who thin down their oils a lot to put on their canvases. But I don't know. I mean, the linseed oil for that one there. And then you don't have the vapors to worry about. But turpentine is available. It is a cleaner. It will clean. And that's probably when you're going to start needing to use your conditioner. Because it is a harsh chemical. But I personally use it as a tool of last resort. So now we're going to stop pretending he's turpentine. And then you have a variety of other cleaners. There's all kinds of cleaners out there. They range from mild to maybe a little bit harsher with the chemicals and different things like that. So just read the bottle, see what fits best for you and your purposes. One of the last things I want to talk about between linseed oil and, well, not linseed oil, but acrylics and oils. Linseed oil can be used with both. It will make it, you can mix a little bit of linseed oil with your acrylics to make it take just a little longer. Maybe they just dry too fast on you. Well, just add a touch of this. And it'll take a lot longer. Basically think of, okay, I just put a dab of vegetable oil on my countertops. How long is it going to take that to dry? Forever. Takes an eternity. Well, that's the exact same thing with this. The more oil you add, the longer it's going to take for your paints to dry. Plus, it makes it a little bit more transparent because you got a lot more translucent medium that your pigments are suspended in. So, linseed oil is available. Again, it is a chemical. It is flammable like nobody believes. It actually says somewhere on any container linseed oil, and there's smaller containers of linseed oil than this thing, but all containers say could spontaneously combust. Keep it away from hot things, keep it away from anything that generates heat. You're going to be fine. If you have rags with linseed oil on them, again, don't throw them on your heating duct. Make sure you keep track of them. Don't just throw them on the floor and then it soaks into your carpet and you don't realize it. It is an oil. It will get everywhere. So keep track of what you are using and what this is getting on, and make sure that you take care of it immediately. Like again, you're using rags, wash them. Once you're done with your painting session, wash them. You know, just simple preventative, keeping on top of things, keeping clean. You're not going to have to worry about this spontaneously combusting. And that is pretty much it. There are a few other things that you can mix between oils and acrylics, and there are even things you can mix with acrylics and watercolors. Acrylics like to play with everybody. They're fun and they're happy individuals. The only thing is, if you are playing with acrylics and you go the oil route, well, watercolor can't come and play now. But if acrylic goes and plays with watercolor, oil can't come and play, because obviously water and oil don't mix, and vice versa. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, but it's kind of, with acrylics, it's the best and worst of both worlds. Acrylics dry faster, like watercolors. Some people would say that's a positive and that's a negative. You can paint on top of something. If you've already painted something you don't like how it looks, well, you can take your acrylics, just like oils, paint over the top of it, and all of a sudden it vanishes, and try again. You can't do that with watercolors. You got to plan a lot more with your watercolors. So, there's a positive. And you can add, if your acrylics are drying too fast, well, you can add some water to them, and then it'll take longer for them, and you can get a transparent look with them by adding a little bit of water. Again, you're adding medium for the pigment to be suspended in. And one of the big downsides I find, it would be lovely if it did it, but then you wouldn't have the paint over ability as much. But I would love it if once an acrylic dries, if you could wet it and move it around a little bit. But that's where the painting over the top of it to fix it comes in. Once acrylic dries, it is dry, it is done. You have to paint over it. It's not going to go anywhere any other way. So, which makes it a lot more like oils. But it's a great thing to play with and have fun with. I'll make more videos on it. It's easier to make videos on acrylic than it is oil, because oil just takes way too long to dry. Otherwise, it's like 1 year to make one video on how to paint with oils. And it's a little bit of nonsense. But a lot of the things that you learn from playing with acrylics can be applied to oils. So always keep that in mind. I pretty much kind of view, unless they are using a lot of water and making their acrylics look like watercolors, just about any techniques you learn from a acrylic class, you can definitely apply to oil. Just keep in mind it takes a lot longer to dry. And if you're like my mom, who loves to pick my paintings up, or at least she used to back when I lived with her and Dad, she would pick my paintings up right after I got done with them. Maybe I'm going to go take a shower or something. And she'd set them up against the wall and look at them. And then by the time I got back, all my colors and all that oil just starts running down the side because she got caught up in Survivor. And I got to repaint the whole thing all over again because she wasn't paying attention to the fact it's running. It takes a while. I personally like to paint on a table on a flat surface, so that way I can mess around with a lot of linseed oils. So definitely keep that in mind, and thank you for watching and hanging out with me. You guys have a great one, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!